I realized the exact price of my parents' love when I saw the receipt 49,972. I remember the smell first, expensive perfume and fresh velvet. Mom's laughter echoed down the marble hallway as she called Luna to come see the dress of a lifetime. I was in the kitchen, microwaving leftover pasta, the hum of the machine drowning out my heartbeat. I didn't know that 10 seconds later, my entire view of this family would snap in half. When I walked past the open living room door, I froze. There it was, a silver gown draped over Luna's arms like it belonged in a museum. Sequins shimmered under the chandelier. Even the air felt richer around it. Dad was filming, grinning like he'd just funded a miracle. Mom kept saying, "It's worth every penny, our baby deserves the best." Every penny. Something inside me whispered, "Ask how many pennies." So I peeked at the white envelope lying on the coffee table. The boutique logo screamed money, and right beneath it, in neat printed ink, was the number that stabbed through my chest: 49,972, almost $50,000. On a dress. For weeks I'd been begging them for $800 to buy my college textbooks. I'd even printed out the invoice, highlighted the total in yellow, and left it on Mom's vanity mirror. Every morning it disappeared. Every night it came back with her perfume smudged across it, like my education was just another accessory she didn't need. Luna twirled in front of the mirror, the fabric whispering against the floor. "Do you think this color makes my eyes pop?" she asked, her voice sugary, practiced. Dad nodded. "You'll break the internet in that, sweetheart." I stood there invisible, clutching the edge of the wall until my knuckles turned white. The air smelled of money and approval, a scent I'd never worn. "Ellis." Mom's voice snapped me back. "You're home. Can you grab us some champagne glasses? We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" My throat felt tight. "Luna got invited to the Celeste Gala," she said, as if those words carried the weight of world peace. "It's a huge opportunity for her influencer career." I wanted to congratulate my sister. I really did. But all I could think about was the unopened email from my university reminding me that classes started Monday and I still couldn't afford the books. I muttered something like sure and turned toward the kitchen. But Luna's voice stopped me. "Hey, Yell, maybe you can borrow my old tablet for your classes. It's cracked, but it works." Her smile was innocent enough to fool a stranger, not me. That little crack in the corner was from when she threw it across the room last year because the Wi-Fi lagged during a live stream. Dad chuckled. "That's a good idea. Ellis has always been resourceful." The words burned. Resourceful was just their polite way of saying you're on your own. I poured the champagne, hands shaking. Every bubble rising in those glasses felt like one more second of my life sinking into resentment. When I brought them back, Mom clinked her glass against Luna's. "To dreams coming true," she said. Luna giggled. And I whispered, "To priorities." Under my breath, Mom turned. "What was that?" "Nothing," I lied. But it wasn't nothing. It was the first crack in the silence I'd built around myself. Later that night, I lay in bed scrolling through second-hand textbook listings, each price tag mocking me. Down the hall, I could hear Luna's laughter spilling from her room as she facetimed her friends about the dress. The sound of her joy was sharp, glittery, endless. I opened my notes app and started typing a list titled "Things They Can't Take From Me." Knowledge, dignity, memory. The list was short, but it was mine. Half an hour later, the soft glow from the hallway made me sit up. Voices: Mom and Dad. "She'll understand," Dad whispered. "She's always been the sensible one," Mom replied. "Luna's different. She needs help to shine." Sensible? Another word for forgettable. I pressed my forehead to the cold window pane. Outside, the world looked expensive too. Rows of polished cars, perfect hedges, and a sky to clean to care. My phone buzzed. A notification from the university bookstore. "Final reminder, unpaid order will be canceled tomorrow." I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Then, through the haze, I saw something: Luna's Instagram post, already up. She'd captioned it, "Dreams do come true #Celeste Gala." The photo showed the same dress, the same smile, and in the background, a faint reflection of me holding the champagne tray like a servant. My heart stuttered. The comments poured in queen energy. "So proud of you. Your parents must be amazing, amazing." I closed the app, my pulse hammering. Maybe they were amazing for her. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the money, the favoritism, or the fact that deep down, I'd started expecting it. As I stared into the dark, one thought refused to leave me. If love in this house had a price tag, mine must have fallen off years ago. That night, I decided to stop waiting for their approval and start teaching them the value of what they'd thrown away. I was raised to believe love had to be earned, but Luna got it for free. Mom used to say Luna's laughter could brighten the whole house. I always wondered why my silence didn't count as light too. When we were kids, Luna cried over a broken doll. Dad drove 40 minutes to buy her a new one before bedtime. The one time I really cried because my science project got ruined by rain. Mom said, "That's life, Ellis. Toughen up." Even as a kid, I learned the rhythm of rejection. Luna's tears opened doors. Mine closed them. I can still remember the smell of Dad's cologne mixed with the burnt toast he never let me serve him. "Presentation matters, sweetheart," he'd say, smiling gently but never at me. Always at her. "Dad, can you come to my debate finals?" I asked once, clutching my index cards so tight my palms were damp. He looked up from his laptop, half listening. "When is it?" "Friday." "Oh, Luna's dance recital is that night." He smiled apologetically. "You understand, right? It's her first big stage performance." I nodded, pretending not to care. "Yeah, sure, it's fine." It wasn't fine. It was the third year in a row. That Friday, I scanned the audience during my speech and saw empty seats where my parents should have been. I told myself they were probably late. By the time I finished, those seats were still empty. Luna told me later, "You should have seen the lights yell. They made me look like an actual star." She laughed. I smiled. But inside, something cracked, small, invisible, but permanent. The favoritism didn't just live at home, it followed me everywhere. Teachers who saw my parents clapping at Luna's recitals would say things like, "You must be so proud of your sister." I'd nod, forcing a smile that felt heavier each time. One teacher, Mrs. Gardner, once said quietly after class, "You're a smart girl, Ellis. Don't let anyone make you small." That night, I wrote her words on a sticky note and hid it in my drawer like contraband. Mom loved to introduce Luna at parties. "This is our little sunshine." When it came to me, she'd just say, "And this is Ellis, our serious one." Serious. As if ambition was a flaw. Even my grandmother noticed once. "You spoil Luna too much," she told Mom. Mom laughed it off. "Oh, Ellis doesn't mind. She's the independent type." Independent? No, I just stopped asking for help. Years passed like that, birthday cakes cut unevenly, applause divided unfairly, love rationed like an allowance I never received. Dad's words echoed through the years. "Luna brings people together. Ellis, you focus on books," as if being focused meant being unmovable. I tried harder, got top grades, earned scholarships. Every success felt hollow because no one cared enough to notice. When Luna posted a new selfie, Mom would call out from the living room, "Look how pretty she is." When I got accepted into an Ivy League program, all I got was, "That's great, honey. Just don't overwork yourself." Overwork myself? I'd been doing that my entire life just to be seen. One night, Luna found me studying at a M. The blue glow of my laptop made her sequin pajamas sparkle. She leaned on the doorframe. "Do you ever sleep?" "Not much." "Why?" "You already got into college." "Because I need to stay there," I said flatly. She laughed lightly. "You make life sound like a competition." Maybe because I never got the trophy. Her smile faltered just for a second. Then she said, "You think too much, Yell. That's why you're always tense." She walked away humming, leaving the scent of her floral body spray in the air, cloying and sweet, like everything that came easy to her. The next morning, I overheard Mom on the phone. "Ellis worries too much. She's always in her head," she said. Then she laughed. "Not like Luna, she's got the sparkle." I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror. I didn't see sparkle, just someone fading at the edges, too pale to catch the light. That evening, Dad came home later than usual. His tie was loose, his voice tired, but sharp. Luna rushed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "You're late, Daddy," she pouted playfully. He smiled. "Work's been crazy, sweetheart." Then his eyes flicked to me. "Ellis, did you pay your part of the phone bill?" I saw an extra charge. "Yes, that's Luna's online subscription again." He frowned but didn't turn to her. "We'll discuss later." We didn't. After dinner, I walked past the study and froze. His voice was low, but clear through the half-open door. "She's becoming a burden, Tess," he said. My breath caught. "Don't say that," Mom whispered back. "She's just intense. She'll calm down." "No, it's like she resents us. Always judging. Always cold." Burden. That word slid under my skin like ice. I stepped back quietly, the floorboards creaking under my heel. Dad's voice paused. I held my breath. A moment later, the sound of him sighing filled the silence. "We did everything for her," he muttered. I turned and walked to my room, the air thick and heavy. The walls seemed to close in with every step. Maybe I was a burden. Or maybe they just didn't want to carry the guilt of never loving me right. That hope I'd clung to all my life, the hope they'd see me one day, died with that single word. Sometimes, the truth doesn't break you, it hardens you. The house was silent that night, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old wood settling under the weight of secrets. I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't stop replaying that one-word burden. I slipped out of bed, the air sharp against my skin, and walked toward the kitchen for water. The tiles were cold, biting through my socks. As I turned the corner, I heard voices, low, deliberate, familiar. Mom, Dad. They didn't know I was standing just outside the doorway, half hidden by the darkness. "She just doesn't fit in our image," Mom said, her voice steady, but edged with something I hadn't heard before, embarrassment. "Image?" Dad's reply was softer but cut sharper. "Ellis is practical, not marketable like Luna." The word marketable hit harder than burden ever did. Mom sighed. "We can't build the brand around someone who frowns in photos, Asher. She's not relatable." I pressed my back against the wall, my heartbeat sinking with the ticking clock. Brand, marketable, relatable. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was an obstacle to their image. Dad stirred something in his mug. The spoon clinked against porcelain, steady and rhythmic. "Luna's followers love her. If we timed the product launch with her new vlog, it could double sales," Mom chuckled. "Exactly. She's our golden girl." Ellis just complicates things. My throat burned, but I didn't move. The sound of their voices, so casual, so businesslike, made my skin crawl. "What about her tuition?" Dad asked, almost as an afterthought. Mom shrugged. "She got scholarships. She'll manage. She always does." That laugh, light, dismissive, curled around my spine like smoke. I could picture her expression even without seeing it. Lips pursed, eyebrows raised, eyes full of judgment disguised as concern. Then came the words that carved themselves into me. "You know what Luna said the other day?" Mom began, voice dropping conspiratorially. "She thinks Ellis resents her success, that she's jealous." Dad exhaled through his nose, a half laugh. "Maybe she is. She's too serious for her own good. Doesn't understand that looks and charm go further than hard work sometimes." Mom's tone softened, not with empathy, but pity. "She'll learn eventually. Or she won't. Either way, we can't let her bring the mood down." Something cracked inside me, then not like glass shattering, but like ice breaking underfoot. Quiet, slow, irreversible. They weren't cruel out of ignorance. They were strategic about it. Every dismissal, every subtle slight, it wasn't emotional blindness. It was branding. I'd been raised not by parents, but by a marketing department. Footsteps shifted. Dad leaned against the counter. I could see the faint outline of his profile through the crack in the door, his jaw tight, his tie loosened, his eyes half tired, half calculating. "Luna's the face," he said. "Ellis can stay in the background. We'll keep her around for appearances. Family balance until Luna's following stabilizes." Mom hummed in agreement. "Yes, a family needs contrast. Contrast." I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. My hands shook, the glass of water trembling slightly as I lifted it from the counter near me. Their laughter, light, practiced, performative, echoed across the marble floor. Every sound, every word turned into static in my head. They weren't just ignoring me, they were using me. A background prop in a picture-perfect family they curated for the world. I set the glass down carefully, afraid it would shatter and expose me. My reflection flickered faintly in the oven door, pale face, trembling hands, eyes hollowed out by disbelief. For a second, I imagined walking in there, asking them why. Why wasn't I enough? Why did love need an audience to exist? But I didn't move. I just stood there, invisible, listening. Mom's tone shifted again. "Do you think she suspects anything?" Dad's answer was dry. "Ellis? No, she's too focused on her books. She lives in her head." I wanted to laugh, or scream. Maybe both. If only they knew how much I'd been observing every conversation, every compliment that wasn't for me. Every time they turned affection into currency, they thought I was oblivious. I was just quiet, watching, waiting. As they moved toward the stairs, the faint smell of Dad's cologne trailed after him, sharp, metallic, artificial. The scent of control. When their footsteps faded, I finally exhaled. The refrigerator hummed louder, filling the silence they left behind. I turned off the kitchen light and stood there in darkness, my heartbeat still echoing in my ears. I wasn't unloved. I was unwanted for who I was. But the thing about being unwanted, it frees you. That was the night I decided to stop being their background character. I thought college would save me, but they found a way to poison that too. When the acceptance letter arrived, I sat frozen at the kitchen table, the paper trembling in my hands. Congratulations, it read in elegant gold lettering. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. For the first time in years, I thought maybe I could finally breathe again. I ran to the living room where Dad and Tess were watching TV. I got in, I said, voice cracking. The university accepted me. Tess didn't even look up from her phone. That's great, she said flatly, scrolling through something that made her smirk. Dad nodded, eyes glued to the screen. Proud of you, kiddo. You'll figure out the details. The details? I repeated, confused. He muted the TV, sighing like I'd asked for too much. Housing, books, transportation, those are your responsibilities now. You're independent. Remember? The word independent hit harder than I expected. It wasn't praise. It was a wall. I looked at Tess, hoping for backup. She was comparing pearl bracelets on her phone. Could you maybe help me with the deposit? I asked quietly. Just this once. She looked up, annoyed. I already gave Luna my extra money. We're matching her accessories for the graduation dinner next week. I blinked. You gave her money for accessories, but Tess interrupted, voice clipped. Don't start. You're always playing the victim. Dad turned the volume back up. Figure it out, he repeated. Inside, something cracked. That night, the excitement I'd felt earlier twisted into panic. I stared at the acceptance letter on my bed, its gold crest gleaming under my desk lamp. My dream university. My ticket out. And I couldn't even afford the first week. I started picking up extra shifts at the cafe downtown. The place smelled of burnt espresso and old sugar. My hands stayed sticky from wiping counters, my apron stained with milk foam and exhaustion. By the third week, my feet ached so badly I could barely stand. But quitting wasn't an option. Every latte was another inch closer to my future. Rough day again, huh? My coworker Jamie said, tossing me a towel. I smiled weakly. Just trying to keep up. He frowned. You should rest. You're shaking. I hadn't noticed until he said it. My hands were trembling slightly, the cup rattling against the counter. Fine, I lied. Just tired. The truth was, every time the cafe door chimed, I expected Tess to walk in. Not to apologize, she'd never do that, but to flaunt her new clothes. Her manicured nails, Luna in tow, both pretending I didn't exist. Days blurred together, work, exhaustion, pretending everything was fine. At night, I'd study financial aid forms by the dim glow of my phone, heart pounding each time a page asked for a parent contribution. One evening, as I scrubbed a coffee machine, Jamie leaned over and whispered, "Hey, is that your sister?" I turned. Tess stood outside the glass window, Luna by her side, laughing as they posed for a selfie. Both wore pastel dresses, sunlight catching on their matching bracelets. My bracelet, the one I'd given Tess when we were still close, glinted on Luna's wrist. My stomach twisted. Jamie frowned. They look like you. Kind of. Their family, I muttered. Sort of. When they spotted me, Tess gave a small wave, mocking, half smile curling at the edge of her mouth. Then she leaned toward Luna, whispering something that made them both laugh. I turned away before my eyes could give me away. A tea home. Dad was in the garage again, the smell of gasoline and dust thick in the air. Dad, I said quietly, holding out a printout. I need to pay the housing deposit tomorrow, or I'll lose my spot. He didn't look up. I told you, you're independent. I just need a short-term loan. I can pay it back. Stop, he said sharply. You chose this path. You handle it. My voice trembled. You're spending more on Luna's hair appointments than my future. His expression hardened. Enough, Melissa. Melissa. The way he said my name, it wasn't affection. It was a warning. That night, I sat outside the cafe after closing, the air heavy with rain. My hands smelled of coffee grounds and metal. Across the street, the neon from a nail salon flickered red, washing everything in a sickly glow. I scrolled through my phone. Past messages from the university reminding me about deadlines. Until I reached Tess's profile, her latest post was tagged #FamilyFirst. A photo of her, Luna, and Dad at a fancy restaurant. Tess had captioned it, celebrating Luna's future. She deserves it all. My throat closed up. Future. I had one too, or at least I thought I did. Jamie texted me that night. You okay? You looked pale earlier. I typed, just tired, deleted it. Then wrote, trying to keep my dream alive. Before I could hit send, a notification popped up. Luna had posted something new. The thumbnail showed my old bedroom, the one I hadn't seen in weeks. My pulse spiked. The caption read, "Guess who finally got what she deserved?" My thumb hovered over the screen, and for a split second, the world went silent. Then Luna posted something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just betrayal, it was mockery. Dressed in sequins, I hadn't expected Luna to go this far. My phone buzzed incessantly as I scrolled through notifications. At first, I thought it was a glitch, just a viral post from some random influencer. But no, it was Luna, wearing that $50,000 dress her mother had splurged on for some gala I wasn't invited to. She twirled in the camera, sequins catching the light, glitter bouncing like mockery in motion. Some people go broke over books, am I right? She said, laughing, her voice dripping with teasing sweetness. The caption mocked me explicitly, though I was the only one who would know. Thousands of likes flickered on the screen. My stomach churned, a bitter cocktail of humiliation and fury. The comments scrolled endlessly. Melissa can't afford college books. Who needs education when you have Luna's style? Poor sis. She should take notes from Luna. My name trended in the cruelest way possible, mocked by strangers, exposed by my own sister. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. My fingers gripped it tight, knuckles white. I stormed into the living room, heart pounding like a drum, chest tight with anger. Tess was lounging on the couch, one leg crossed over the other, her nails painted a perfect coral. Luna sat beside her, phone in hand, replaying the video for the 5th time. You posted that? My voice was sharper than I intended, quivering under the weight of rage. Luna looked up, a slow smirk curving across her lips. Oh, that? It's just a joke, relax. Her eyes sparkled like she'd won something secret. Just a joke? I repeated, disbelief thick in my throat. Do you know what people are saying? They know it's me, your own sister. Tess sighed, leaning back like she was judging my overreaction. Don't be dramatic, Melissa. Seriously, it's not that deep. Not that deep? I echoed, voice trembling. They're laughing at me, at my dream, at everything I'm trying to do. Luna shrugged, spinning the phone in her fingers. Relax, you're always so serious. Her smirk widened into something colder, sharper. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wipe the smugness off her face with my bare hands. Instead, I clenched my jaw and left. Every step to my room was heavy, like I was walking through cement. The hallway smelled faintly of her perfume, sweet, suffocating, taunting. Inside my room, I slammed the door, the echo bouncing off the walls. I sank onto my bed, my hands trembling. The bracelet I had given Tess, the one she had passed to Luna, felt like a hot chain around my wrist. It glinted under the lamplight, a cruel reminder of how they'd weaponized something that had once symbolized love. I stared at the ceiling, chest tightening. Anger, humiliation, and something darker brewed in my stomach. I couldn't even cry. The betrayal had stripped me bare, left me raw. I wanted to curl up, to hide from the world, but that wasn't me anymore. Not after everything they'd taken. I thought of the acceptance letter on my desk, the university I was about to lose, and the calf shifts that left me aching, smelling of burnt espresso and cold milk. The juxtaposition was unbearable, my struggle invisible, theirs flaunted. I replayed Luna's video in my head, the laughter, the sequins, the casual cruelty, Tess's dismissive tone, Dad's indifference. Every gesture, every smile, every subtle superiority in their voices was now etched in my mind like a scar. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. Rain had started again, tiny droplets splattering the glass. The neon lights from the nearby cafe flickered in the puddles, distorted and wavering. My reflection stared back at me, a girl broken by her family yet burning with a slow, coiling fire. I clenched my fists. Every insult, every mocking comment, every joke became a brick in a wall I would build around them. But this wall wasn't for hiding, it was for planning. The humiliation had done its job. My pride shattered, My heart hammered, and yet somewhere beneath all the pain, a quiet voice whispered, "They think they've won, but they've just lit the match." I didn't cry that night. Not once. I didn't scream. Didn't throw things. Didn't plead. Instead, I sat in the dim light, the bracelet cold against my skin, and began planning. That was the night I stopped crying and started planning. Revenge doesn't start with rage, it starts with clarity. I sat cross-legged on my dorm bed, the dim desk lamp flickering over my dying laptop. Its battery warning blinked like a countdown timer, casting pale light across my scattered notebooks, receipts, and half-empty coffee cups. I stared at the screen, not at the emails or files open, but at the memory of Luna's smirk from the night before. The same smirk that had made the world laugh at me. And then it hit me, not in a rush of anger, but as a cold, precise clarity. They live for attention. Every post, every outfit, every carefully filtered picture was about perception. Luna thrived on validation. Tess polished it. Dad profited from it. And for the first time, I realized something essential. If I could strip it from them, even for a moment, I could make them tremble. I could reclaim power. I began my hunt. My laptop protested with low hums and grinding fans, but I ignored it. I opened spreadsheets, bills, and bank statements I'd collected over months. Small financial inconsistencies leapt out at me: payments for influencer campaigns that didn't exist, receipts from luxury stores misfiled under business expenses. Luna's so-called collaborations, half of them were staged posts, contracts faked, inflated numbers to make her profile look bigger than it was. And Dad? A network of deals intertwined with her brand that smelled faintly of tax evasion and shell companies. Each click, each copy, each screenshot felt like reclaiming a fragment of what they had stolen from me: my pride, my dignity, my right to be taken seriously. I paused, rubbing my temples. My brain raced, mapping connections and imagining scenarios. If I leaked this carefully, anonymously, it would destabilize them. Public perception, their precious image, would crack and they wouldn't even know it came from me. A knock on the door startled me. "Melissa?" It was my dorm neighbor, half asleep and yawning. Just studying," I muttered, sliding the spreadsheet under a pile of textbooks. "Late night?" she asked, voice soft, oblivious to the storm behind my eyes. "Yeah, deadlines." I forced a smile, feeling my own pulse thud in my ears. The knock faded, leaving silence thick as syrup. The apartment smelled faintly of old pizza boxes, sweat, and damp carpet, but I barely noticed. My attention snapped back to the laptop, eyes scanning line after line of incriminating evidence. Each discovery tightening a coil of anticipation inside me. I thought of Luna laughing in that sequined dress, Tess waving me off with mock concern, and Dad brushing my anger aside like dust. My hands clenched around my notebook. They think their image is untouchable. They think no one sees their cracks. I started cataloging everything methodically. Financial inconsistencies became folders. Fake collaborations became timelines. Photos, emails, receipts, screenshots, all organized in ways that would make even a casual observer gasp at the depth of their deception. I labeled each file, gave each a color code, and marked patterns in neon highlighter. Every action felt deliberate, measured revenge not as chaos, but as strategy. My dorm room faded into the background, the creaking radiator, the smell of coffee turning sour, the shadows in the corner, but my focus sharpened to a single point. This was no longer about hurt or anger. It was about power, leverage, and timing. Then, as I was cross-referencing an influencer contract with bank deposits, my eyes caught an email I hadn't seen before. From an address I didn't recognize, subject line blinking insistently, confidential, Luna's collab, immediate attention required. I froze. The timestamp was recent. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the mouse, heart hammering. A single click could reveal everything that had been hidden from the world, everything that could tip the scales in my favor. And when I opened it, I realized the game had changed entirely. Then I found an email that changed everything. Greed leaves a trail, and my father's greed was glowing like neon. The email from the previous night burned in my mind as I sank into the worn armchair in the corner of my dorm. Subject line flashing again on my cracked laptop screen. Confidential. Luna's collab, immediate attention required. My fingers trembled slightly. But not with fear, this was anticipation, the kind that makes your pulse thrum against your ribs. I clicked, and the trail of transactions unfolded before me. A T first glance. It seemed like normal payments, small amounts trickling into Luna's account. But as I dug deeper, patterns emerged. Deposits from shell companies tied to Dad's firm, labeled as marketing or project funding, funneled in and out with surgical precision. The sums were large, enough to raise eyebrows in any competent audit, but they had been hidden under layers of digital obfuscation. My stomach churned, a mix of dread and excitement. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I was just the kid they brushed off. But now I held everything in my hands. I started taking screenshots, each image saved meticulously into a hidden folder. The laptop's fan word, small and insistent, a white noise against my racing thoughts. I opened a voice recorder on my phone, whispering notes about each transaction, each suspicious timestamp. Dad's greed is glowing like neon, I thought, picturing him in his crisp suits, smiling at investors while knowing the money was being funneled to fake influencer projects, Luna's fake brand collaborations, Tessa's polished Instagram posts. They're all part of the same web. And I'm the only one outside it. I paused, rubbing my eyes. My dorm felt colder than usual. Shadows stretched long across the room, bending around the cluttered furniture, echoing the secret trails I had uncovered. The smell of instant noodles and coffee clung to the air. Every click, every scroll, every screenshot felt illicit, dangerous, and intoxicating. For the first time, I was in control. A knock on the door shattered the quiet. "Melissa, you still up?" I barely whispered back. "Yeah, just researching." The voice outside was light, curious, unaware of the storm inside me. I returned to the screen, heart hammering as I navigated folders on Luna's laptop that I'd somehow gotten temporary access to during my last family visit. Notes on fake collaborations, pre-signed contracts, payments scheduled months in advance. The web was endless. Then I heard the faint click of her footsteps approaching far too soon. My stomach plummeted. She must have come back earlier than expected. How much did she see? Did she know I'd been in her files? I whispered to myself, holding the hidden drive in my pocket. Okay, just stay calm. One step at a time. The drive was tiny, unassuming, but inside it lay the culmination of weeks of observation, months of gathering, and my newfound strategy for leverage. I imagined Dad's face if this went public, Luna's expression when her followers learned half her collaborations were faked, Tessa's smug little grin, finally replaced by panic. The danger was thrilling. Every nerve-ending screamed caution, yet I couldn't stop. I cross-referenced deposits, matching them with receipts and photos I had snapped surreptitiously during family dinners and events. The lines connecting them formed a map of deceit, greed, and lies. I felt the tension coil tighter when I noticed movement behind me, a shadow stretching across the edge of the desk. A familiar silhouette. Luna. She had come back earlier than she said. Her hand hovered over the laptop I'd just been using, eyes narrowing, suspicion prickling across her features. "Melissa? What are you doing on my laptop?" Her tone was light, but the forced smile didn't reach her eyes. A flicker of nervous energy pulsed in her fingers. I froze, mind racing. "Think, don't panic. Act normal. Just checking the Wi-Fi settings." "It's acting weird," I muttered, voice steady despite my heart hammering. Luna's head tilted slightly, lips pursed. She tapped her finger against the keyboard, glancing between me and the screen. A faint smell of her perfume, something floral, cloying, hit my nose, making me acutely aware of every second. She said finally, leaning back just slightly, though her eyes lingered. "You sure you're not snooping?" I laughed softly, masking the adrenaline spike, but inwardly I was calculating escape routes, mentally rehearsing how I could walk away with my secrets intact. The laptop's glow reflected in her eyes, highlighting the tension I couldn't yet show externally. The hidden drive was in my pocket, warm from my hand. If she knew even a fraction of what I had collected, she'd be furious. If Dad found out, I shivered at the possibilities, and yet, even in the shadow of discovery, I felt a dangerous thrill, the intoxicating power of knowledge. The first taste of control in a game where I had been powerless for too long. Until Luna almost caught me going through her laptop. One mistake and I could lose everything. I froze mid-click, the cursor hovering over Luna's hidden folder as her silhouette filled the doorway. My chest slammed against my ribs, and for a heartbeat, the world contracted to the sound of my own rapid breathing. She leaned against the frame, one eyebrow raised, lips curling in a teasing smirk, but her eyes were sharp, predatory, suspicious. One mistake, and all of this could vanish. Years of careful observation, the screenshots, the recordings, gone in an instant. I forced a calm smile, letting my hands rest casually on the desk as if nothing was amiss. Hey, just fixing the Wi-Fi. It's been acting weird all day. Luna's laugh was light, a melody that didn't reach the edges of her eyes. Wi-Fi, huh? She said, tilting her head, the subtle shift of her posture betraying her scrutiny. You're lucky I'm not one to check the router settings myself. Her tone was playful, but I sensed the undercurrent like ice running through a wine glass. I nodded, blinking casually, trying to anchor myself in normalcy while my heart thudded like a drum. Every breath felt audible, every tiny movement under her gaze amplified. Act normal. Breathe. She can't know. Not yet. I moved to close the folder, letting it disappear behind the screen. My fingers hovered over the hidden drive in my pocket, warm and reassuring. Each second was a tightrope walk, every slight misstep a potential disaster. Luna's eyes flicked to the laptop, then back to me, scanning for the truth. Honestly, she said, leaning closer, with a mock tilt of innocence. You really have a knack for helping people with their tech problems. Her smile was sharp now, a forced curve, eyes narrowing. She's testing me, I realized. Every subtle twitch of her fingers, every shift in weight, every blink it was strategy. She wanted to see if I'd flinch. I laughed softly, letting it sound like a natural response. Yeah, tech runs in the family, I said, letting the words drip with casual ease. My mind raced, replaying every conversation we'd had in the past week, every subtle hint she had dropped about her brand projects. She's smart, too smart. I need to pace myself. After she left, closing the door behind her with that faint click that always lingered in the room, I sank into the chair, exhaling shakily. The adrenaline was still thrumming through me, making my skin tingle. I touched the hidden drive, pressing it against my chest. The tactile reassurance grounded me, but the stakes were higher now. Every step forward had to be calculated, every move deliberate. I realized that rushing, letting anger or impulse guide me, would ruin everything. This wasn't just about uncovering lies anymore, it was about timing, precision, letting the right moment unfold. One slip up, and Dad's empire of deceit could go unpunished. Luna would remain untouchable. Patience, precision, that's the game now. Every interaction a potential trap. Every laugh or casual comment could hide a weapon aimed at me. Days passed in a haze of careful monitoring, layered observations, and rehearsed casual interactions. I learned to mask my pulse, to speak without giving away the storm underneath. Luna's presence was like a shadow trailing me, a reminder of the precarious tightrope I walked. Even the smallest sound, the faint hum of her laptop, the rustle of her papers, or the lingering scent of her perfume, became cues, warnings, signals I had to read. And then it came, the invitation. Her voice, sunny and deliberate, cut through my careful routine. Melissa, you have to come to my brand launch party next week. It's going to be amazing and you're on the guest list. My stomach dropped and surged at the same time. That's it. That's my stage. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very event she was celebrating, flaunting her fake successes, would be the arena where I would turn the tables. But it had to be perfect. One misstep here, one wrong move, and everything I'd risked could crumble in front of the crowd. Then she invited me to her brand launch party, and I knew that would be my stage. They built an empire on lies, so I decided to burn it down in front of everyone. The mansion glowed like a cathedral, lights bouncing off marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Guests laughed, clinked glasses, and whispered into golden flutes, oblivious to the truth hidden just under the surface. The scent of expensive perfume and fresh flowers mixed with the faint tang of champagne. My pulse hammered so loudly I swore the people next to me could hear it. I slipped along the edges of the crowd, blending into shadows, every movement measured. Luna floated past me, radiant in yet another designer dress, her smile perfect, rehearsed, shining brighter than any chandelier. Her laughter cut through the air, carefree. But I noticed the micro twitch at the corner of her mouth, a hint of nerves beneath the flawless exterior. This is it, I thought, my fingers brushing the USB drive hidden in my clutch. Every lie she's ever told, every sponsor she's faked, every contract she's manipulated, they're all going to be exposed tonight. I reminded myself to breathe, to appear casual, even as my stomach twisted. Every joke I exchanged, every forced laugh, was a balancing act over a pit of fire. The cameras flashed intermittently, catching the smiles of the rich and influential. The projector hummed in the corner, its faint mechanical whirring like a heartbeat counting down to my moment. A waiter brushed past, offering more champagne. "Care for some?" he asked, voice polished and neutral. I shook my head. "Not right now, thanks," I replied, careful to keep my voice steady, casual. Luna turned toward a group of socialites, twirling a strand of her hair. "Can you believe this turnout? Everyone wants a piece of the new launch," she gushed, her tone almost sing-song, masking the tension in her eyes. "I swear, I didn't even know half of these people existed." Her smile didn't reach her gaze. I caught the slight stiffening of her shoulders, the subtle dart of her eyes toward the projector. She knew somehow that tonight could tip the scales. I maneuvered closer, heart hammering against ribs, as the projector began to cast Luna's brand video across the white marble wall. The audience oohed and ahed at the sleek visuals, the fake sponsor logos gleaming in high definition. I felt a familiar surge of anger at the audacity, at the veneer of success built entirely on deception. Wait for it, I told myself. Wait until the applause peaks. The music swelled, laughter erupted in waves, and Luna raised her glass to the crowd. "To growth, to dreams, to everyone who believed in me," she proclaimed, voice ringing clear, confident, rehearsed. Guests cheered, clinking their glasses together. Cameras flashed, capturing the perfect moment, the perfect lie. I waited, pressed against the back wall, every nerve taut. Sweat prickled along my spine, a fine sheen under my arms. My fingers brushed the USB drive again, the cool metal reassuring against my palm. I watched Luna beam, oblivious, radiant in her carefully crafted bubble, and then I noticed a subtle shift in her gaze, the faint narrowing of her eyes toward me. She didn't know why, but something about me made her pause. My heart leapt. She suspects something. Good. I adjusted the USB in my clutch, timing everything precisely. Every footstep toward the projector felt like wading through quicksand, every breath a countdown. The crowd's laughter peaked. Champagne flutes were lifted high. Luna twirled slightly, her necklace catching the light, the micro-expression of pride flickering into overconfidence. I reminded myself, patience, precision, timing. The moment arrived. The room's energy reached a crescendo, the projector's glow reflecting on polished marble and diamond earrings alike. I stepped forward, careful not to draw suspicion, slipped the USB into the slot, and felt the final click resonate like a gunshot in my chest. The air shifted. Subtle but undeniable, a static charge crawling across the crowd, tension before the storm. Luna's smile faltered almost imperceptibly, a twitch in her hand, the forced curve of her lips betraying unease. I swallowed hard, heart pounding like a drumbeat in an empty hall. One click. That's all it takes. The crowd remained oblivious, hands waving, glasses raised, laughter ringing hollow against the undercurrent of suspense building in my chest. I adjusted my posture, acting casual, almost bored, as if nothing were about to happen. The projector waited, the room waited, Luna waited. And then, with my finger hovering over the play button, I felt the weight of every lie, every betrayal, every moment I'd endured pressed down on me. The USB felt impossibly heavy, full of the truth that would ruin her. This is the stage. This is the moment. Then I hit play. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free, it detonates everything. The screen flickered, and for a fraction of a second, I thought the projector had failed. A stuttered blur of color danced across the marble walls, static buzzing faintly in my ears. Then, with a sharp click, it switched to my prepared file. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to inhale slowly, every muscle taut, every nerve alight. The room went quiet, or maybe everyone was just frozen in disbelief. Luna's voice filled the space, clear and smug. "Dad's company handled my taxes, of course." I didn't lift a finger. Why would I? I could see it in the crowd, the confusion, the forced smiles twisting into shock. Micro-expressions betrayed every lie, every hidden tension. Tess, my so-called friend who had whispered she's untouchable just hours ago, froze mid-step, her hand clutching a champagne flute like it might anchor her to reality. Asher's face drained of color so fast it seemed to suck the warmth from the room. This is it, I thought, gripping the glass of water in my hand. My fingers wrapped around it so tightly the condensation pooled in my palm, cold and sharp. They built this empire on lies, and I'm the fuse. The slides shifted rapidly, almost rhythmically, a staccato of evidence. Screenshots of bank transfers, fake invoices, Incriminating messages, everything Luna had hidden for years laid bare. A gasp rippled through the crowd. "Oh my God," Tess whispered, her voice trembling, barely audible over the hum of tension. She's serious." Luna's mouth opened, then closed, a forced smile flashing briefly before vanishing into panic. Her hands twitched at her sides, fingers tapping an invisible rhythm of nerves. I caught the faint shake of her bracelet, the one she always wore to show class, sliding against her wrist. A subtle signal of fear. Asher muttered something incoherent, pacing 2 steps forward, then back again, beads of sweat forming at his temples. Wait, that can't be real," he stammered, voice brittle, defensive. "It's real," I said softly, voice steady, almost casual. "Every bit of it." The crowd pressed closer, leaning in as the projector highlighted the proof. Each screenshot, each message, each transaction, slammed into the room like a hammer striking glass. People murmured, whispered, pointed. Cameras captured it all, flashes igniting the polished marble like bursts of fire. I kept my posture calm, poised, sipping from the water glass to hide the tremor in my hands. The room felt electric, the scent of expensive perfume now mingled with fear, disbelief, and tension so thick it seemed almost visible. Luna's eyes flicked to me, wide, hunting for any weakness. I gave her none, only a small, imperceptible nod. "See what your lies have built," I thought. "See how fragile it all is." This isn't possible," Luna stammered finally, voice cracking despite her effort to maintain composure. Those documents are fake." "Oh, they're real," I said, raising the glass in a mock toast, tone laced with bitter satisfaction. "And you've been bragging about it for years." Gasps turned to murmurs of outrage. Security staff exchanged frantic glances, some whispering into earpieces. I noticed the faint shake of a server's hand in the corner, dropping a clipboard with a clatter that echoed like gunfire in the otherwise silent room. Every detail, every movement, amplified the chaos. Tess stumbled back, gripping my arm for balance. You did this? All of it?" she asked, voice trembling between admiration and fear. "Yes," I replied simply, letting the word hang. "Yes, I burned it all down." The projector displayed one final slide, Luna's face frozen in a video where she laughed, counting stacks of cash while bragging to her inner circle. The sound of her laughter juxtaposed with the dead silence in the room made it grotesque, almost surreal. People looked at her, really looked, and I saw the first cracks in her carefully constructed armor. Her lips quivered. The mascara at the corners of her eyes smudged slightly, a tiny human flaw after years of perfection. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Asher stepped toward her, panic evident, pleading in tone. "Luna, we can fix this, please. Just stop." But the room had already shifted. The empire, carefully curated and polished, crumbling in real time. I could feel the energy change, whispers growing louder, cameras clicking faster, eyes judging, recording, remembering. This is the apex, I reminded myself. Every lie exposed, every betrayal accounted for. And yet, even as I stood there, calm on the surface, a shiver ran down my spine. I realized that this was only the beginning. The last slide vanished, leaving a blank, white glare on the wall. Silence. Glasses hung frozen mid-air. Luna's breath came in shallow gasps, her bracelet gleaming under the harsh lights, a tiny, helpless echo of her former control. I raised my glass once more. This time, in a final, silent acknowledgement, the moment of reckoning had arrived. Security moved in, guests whispered, some in awe, some in fear, some in disbelief, but in the quiet that followed, beneath the noise of flashing cameras and murmuring crowd, a single truth hit me like ice. The explosion I caused tonight, it wasn't the end. It was only the first spark. But the next morning, I realized the explosion had only just begun. When the dust settles, all that's left is truth and scars. The morning light hit my window in harsh, unforgiving streaks. I could hear murmurs and car engines outside, the faint drone of news vans lining the street. My phone vibrated incessantly, a steady reminder that my revelation the night before had gone viral. I stared at the ceiling, the events replaying in my mind like a cruel film. Luna's laughter, now twisted into desperate sobs. Tess, clinging to me, pleading, with eyes full of panic and guilt. Asher pacing, muttering apologies that came too late. For once, they needed to taste what they fed me, I thought, running my fingers over the edge of the glass I had held during the expos. Silence, until they understand the weight of their own deception. Outside, reporters camped with cameras and microphones, capturing every car that arrived, every suspicious shadow. The scent of wet asphalt mixed with expensive cologne, a strange reminder of wealth tainted by lies. Dad's company was under investigation, already bank accounts frozen, phone lines tapped, internal audits in motion. The empire of money and influence crumbling, and I wasn't even involved in the process. Tess appeared at my door, eyes wide, her voice trembling. Please, just retract it. For the family's reputation. For everyone's sake, she begged, voice quivering between pleading and fear. Her hands were clasped as if holding a lifeline. I shook my head slowly, letting silence fill the space between us. No, I said finally, tone calm but unyielding. They needed to see it. They needed to feel it. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You don't understand, this could ruin everything. Your parents, your life. No, it's exactly what they deserve, I thought. My heart ached, but the moral weight had shifted. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was a storm in motion. Luna's cries had already invaded social media by mid-morning. Video clips, edited with sobbing background music, painted her as the innocent one, betrayed and victimized. But I knew the truth. Every carefully hidden transaction, every boastful message, it all screamed guilt. Her bracelet, the same one that had betrayed her, panic in the crowd, gleamed in every frame. The world saw tears. I saw fear, anger, and desperation masked as victimhood. I moved into a friend's spare room that afternoon. The quiet was suffocating, but necessary. No calls, no notifications beyond the bare minimum. I cut contact with everyone who had pretended to care. My life now had to be rebuilt on foundations they had tried to destroy. I unpacked a box of old files, journals, and photographs, memories that reminded me who I was outside their manipulation. I need a life that isn't measured by their greed. I thought, touching a small brass key I had kept from childhood, a symbolic token of control, of doors I could now open for myself. The key's cold weight grounded me in the only truth I could trust, myself. Even in isolation, the repercussions followed. Phone calls from reporters asking for interviews, emails from anonymous insiders hinting at more scandals, texts from Tess filled with apology and subtle begging. Each message was a reminder that I had pulled a thread that unraveled an entire tapestry, yet beneath it all, I felt a strange serenity. I had finally carved a boundary, drawn a line they couldn't cross. For years, I had been swallowed by their manipulations. Now, for the first time, I controlled the narrative. The sun had dipped low when I heard the first knock. Sharp, deliberate, insistent. My heart stuttered, a reflex I hadn't felt in months. I opened the door to find a plain, cream-colored envelope on my doormat. No stamp, no return address. I picked it up, the paper thick and textured under my fingers. A chill ran through me, not from the evening air, but from the weight of expectation. My mind raced, imagining the possible horrors, the threats, the subtle manipulations hiding within its folds. Tess would have begged me to ignore it, but I didn't. I held it close, feeling the subtle indentation of the letter pressed inside. This isn't over, I thought. The room seemed colder suddenly. Shadows stretched across the walls, lengthening unnaturally as the evening light faded. I placed the envelope on the small desk beside my bed, hands hovering over it as if it were both treasure and trap. One letter, one name, one truth, or threat. Whatever it contains, I'm ready, or so I tell myself. The silence pressed in, heavy and tactile, like a damp cloth over my lungs. The air smelled faintly of ink and old paper, and the quiet tick of the wall clock seemed louder than usual. I could hear Luna's laughter from videos echoing faintly in my memory, a ghostly contrast to the panic etched in the room the night before. The world outside was still spinning with gossip and speculation, but here in this room, I faced only anticipation and dread. The fallout has begun, and the next chapter is already waiting. Then I received a letter from Luna. Apologies sound different when they come too late. The envelope arrived on a rainy morning, curling slightly at the edges from the damp air seeping in through the mailbox. I recognized Luna's handwriting immediately, delicate, looping, almost theatrical, a stark contrast to the venom I had felt from her just days ago. My hands trembled as I peeled it open. The words inside were precise, deliberate, but weighted with an unfamiliar fragility. I never realized how deeply I hurt you, she wrote. Dad forced me into things I didn't agree to. Fake sponsorships, staged appearances. I know it doesn't excuse my laughter, my teasing, or the way I sided with them. Please, talk to me. I read the lines again, this time slower, my chest twisting in a confusing blend of anger, disbelief, and faint, reluctant sympathy. Part of me wants to throw it away. Part of me wants to run to her and scream, cry, forgive, but the echo of her mockery in my ears won't let me. I could almost hear her voice in those words, soft and pleading, yet I knew the mask too well. The subtle quiver of insincerity beneath every sentence, the pause between lines that spoke of fear rather than regret. I traced the edges of the letter with my thumb, feeling the texture of the paper, the faint scent of her perfume lingering on it, sweet, almost nauseating in its familiarity. Later that afternoon, Tess called. Her voice trembled. Did you get Luna's letter? Yes, I said, keeping my tone even, careful not to betray the storm inside me. Are you going to reply? She asked, almost whispering, her fear palpable. I shook my head. No, sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Tess sighed. I don't know how you do it, how you keep your cool. If it were me, it's not about keeping cool. It's about control, about letting them sit in the weight of what they've done, I thought. My silence wasn't cruelty, it was strategic, deliberate. Sometimes revenge isn't fire and spectacle. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, slow burning, and inescapable. The evening settled like a gray blanket over the city. Rain tapped against the window in sporadic rhythms, each droplet a tiny percussion against the tension in my chest. I placed Luna's letter on the desk beside the brass key I had kept as a symbol of autonomy. Its cold metal, a grounding weight in the swirl of my emotions, the letter's edges curled slightly. And I wondered, did she imagine the turmoil her words would ignite? Or did she think her apology could erase everything with a single sentence? I didn't answer. I didn't delete her messages. I didn't allow myself to be drawn into her narrative. The quiet was deliberate, a sharp echo that reflected the absence of her laughter, the absence of the family's manipulations. Every passing hour reinforced the power of withholding, of letting her wrestle with the knowledge that her words had reached me, but would remain unanswered. A memory flashed. Unbidden, Luna laughing at my failed attempt to speak up at the company dinner, her bracelet glinting under the chandelier, her eyes sparkling with cruelty. I could feel my stomach twist at the recollection. The betrayal, raw and unsoftened by time, I could forgive. But forgetting? I clenched my fists around the letter, then released them slowly. Some wounds are reminders, not excuses. The rain outside grew heavier, smearing the streetlights into distorted pools of orange and white. Shadows flickered across my walls as the wind rattled the window pane. I sat in silence, letting the city's soundscape mirror the turmoil in my mind. The letter remained untouched beside the key, symbolic, tethering the past to the present. Days passed. Each time I passed a reflective surface, I saw my own expression calm, composed, but beneath it, a quiet storm brewed. Luna's words were a dagger, but my inaction was a sharper one, slicing through her expectations. Sometimes silence is the sharpest. Revenge, sharper than confrontation, louder than a scream. Then, a week later, my heart skipped. I was walking up the familiar path to my apartment, the brass key heavy in my pocket, when I noticed it, a black car, idling a few houses away. The tint made it impossible to see inside, but the engine hummed steadily, mirroring the pulse racing through my chest. Not again, I thought, feeling the hair on my arms stand on end. The rain had stopped, leaving the street slick and reflective, each shadow elongated, each movement magnified. I quickened my pace, keeping my hands in my pockets, my mind running through possibilities, plans, contingencies. The quiet, calculated silence I had maintained for a week suddenly became fragile. The city felt colder, the street emptier, the night heavier. A black car started following me home. Revenge has a price, and someone had decided I should pay it. It started subtly. At first, like a trick of the eye, a black car lingering too long at the corner after my classes. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. But the third day, when it matched my route home, mirrors reflecting its glossy surface, my stomach twisted in a premonition I couldn't ignore. I kept glancing over my shoulder, my mind racing. Is this Dad? Some twisted game? Or just my imagination? Each red light became a countdown, each reflection in store windows a potential threat. The city felt colder when that car was near, as if the asphalt itself was complicit in watching me, waiting. One night, I returned from the library later than usual. The hallway of my apartment building smelled of wet concrete and cleaning chemicals. My key trembled between my fingers as I reached the door, every footstep echoing against the walls. Then I heard it, a soft, deliberate tread on the floor above mine, moving toward the stairwell. I froze. My chest tightened. The air in my lungs seemed to thicken. They're here. Someone's here. I whispered into the silence, almost absurdly. Who's there? The only answer was a faint creak, like someone shifting weight deliberately, testing if I'd notice. I backed into my apartment, hand fumbling for my phone. I dialed the police with shaking fingers. Yes, I think someone's outside my apartment, I stammered. Please, I need help. The dispatcher's voice was calm, almost soothing, but that only amplified my panic. We're sending officers, ma'am. Stay inside. Lock your doors. Don't confront them. Minutes felt like hours. I pressed my back to the door, staring at the peephole, listening to the faint patter of what might have been footsteps or my own racing heartbeat bouncing off the walls. When the police arrived, they swept the hallway and the lobby. Nothing, one officer said, tone flat. No signs of entry. Could be an animal, maybe a neighbor walking around. I forced a nod, but inside, terror clenched me like a vice. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't random. It's someone who knows exactly how to get under my skin. Tess called soon after. Did they find anything? Her voice was laced with worry. They didn't. But you know they were there, I whispered. The sound of my own words made the fear sharper, more intimate. I don't know what to say. Are you okay? I clenched my jaw. Okay is a luxury I can't afford right now. Every shadow feels like a threat, every passing car like it's watching me. I tried to sleep, but the memory of those footsteps was a weight pressing against my skull. The shadows in my room seemed to stretch closer with each blink. The rain outside had stopped, but the lingering scent of wet asphalt and cold metal haunted the corners of the apartment. Did Dad send someone to scare me? Or is it my guilt chasing me? Maybe both. Or neither. Maybe I've just invited shadows into my life, and now they linger. I kept the blinds drawn, lights low, and phone clutched like a lifeline. Each creak of the radiator, each distant siren, amplified the paranoia that had been dormant for so long. The fear I once buried, carefully packed beneath routines and distractions, surged back like a tidal wave, leaving me raw, alert, and calculating. This is no longer about Luna's apology. This is about survival, and someone has decided I should pay for daring to hold my own power. Then, the final unthinkable happened. I returned from a short walk, trying to distract myself from the paranoia, and there it was, a package, plain brown, sitting at my door. No sender, no note, only my name neatly printed on the tape. I froze, knuckles white on the doorknob. My pulse thundered in my ears. The city's silence pressed against me, heavy and suffocating. My instincts screamed at me to run, to call Tess, to throw it into the street, but something darker, colder, whispered, open it. Face the shadow. Then a package appeared at my door with no sender name. Inside was the last thing I expected, proof that I wasn't done yet. The brown package sat on my doorstep like a predator waiting patiently for its prey. Its corners were worn, the tape yellowed, as if it had traveled through more hands than I wanted to imagine. I stared at it, my knuckles whitening around the doorknob. Who sent this? And why? The rain from earlier had left a faint scent of wet asphalt clinging to the cardboard, and a subtle metallic tang like iron wafted from it. It made my stomach churn. I hesitated, hand hovering over the top. I shouldn't open it, but I have to know. Inside, everything tumbled out in a chaotic, deliberate order. Photos first. Luna, crouched on the courthouse steps, tears streaking her face, hair plastered to her cheeks by rain. Tess in a lawyer's office, sleeves rolled up, a stack of files fanned out across the table. And then a small USB drive, the label handwritten, for Ellis. My chest tightened. Someone had put this together just for me. I sank onto the floor, clutching the USB as if it were a lifeline. Who? Why? I whispered to the empty room. The apartment felt suddenly colder, the air buzzing with anticipation and dread. Shadows from the flickering hallway light danced across the walls, making the room feel alive, waiting. I hesitated before plugging it in. My computer hummed, screensaver flickering, and then the files appeared, audio recordings. My pulse pounded as I clicked the first one. The voice was unmistakable. Dad. Publicly, he blamed me. Ellis has always caused trouble. She brought this on herself, he sneered, tone sharp and dismissive. But then, the second recording private revealed a different man entirely. His voice cracked, quiet, almost broken. I did it. I lied. I covered it up. It's all on me. Everything. I never wanted you to find out like this, Ellis. My hands shook. Every word was a dagger, every pause a reminder of the years he'd hidden behind smiles and polite dinners. My mind raced. This is it. This is my weapon. Someone wanted me to have it. Maybe Luna. Maybe Tess. Maybe someone else entirely. But it's mine now. I replayed the recordings again, faster this time, trying to memorize every inflection, every hidden admission. The air seemed thicker, heavier, the hum of the computer, like a pulse syncing with my own heartbeat. The faint smell of paper and metal from the USB mixed with the lingering scent of wet asphalt from the package. It felt like the room was pressing down, urging me to act. Tess called around then, her voice anxious. Ellis, are you okay? I saw a car outside your apartment earlier. Did it follow you? I'm fine. Just tired, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Listen, Tess, I have something now. Something that changes everything. What do you mean? I clenched the USB. Dad, it's him. Everything. I know everything. And I'm going to use it. I have to. There was a long pause. Ellis. Her tone was a mixture of fear, worry, and something else, admiration. She had no idea what I'd uncovered. No one did. I have to do this myself, I added quietly. No one else can. Not yet. The photos, the recordings, the USB, they weren't just evidence. They were leverage. They were confirmation that my years of careful planning, the nights I spent replaying conversations, watching movements, anticipating betrayals, they hadn't been wasted. I looked around my apartment, the dim glow of the streetlight spilling through the blinds, shadows pooling in the corners, the faint hum of the radiator, the chill creeping from the window, the lingering metallic scent, it all sharpened my resolve. This was the moment where fear transformed into purpose. Every betrayal, every tear, every calculated lie led to this moment. I imagined the confrontation, Dad's face when he realizes I know, Luna's reaction, Tess's calculation, but most importantly, the quiet satisfaction of holding the final piece of the puzzle. The USB was more than a drive. It was my control, my secret advantage, my shadow in the storm. I sat back, exhaling slowly, the tremor in my hands subsiding into a rigid calm. My stomach still churned, but it was now fueled by strategy rather than panic. I knew exactly what I had to do. Every detail, the photos, the recordings, the timing would play out in my favor. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled, but it was sharp, cold, purposeful. The apartment was silent. Only the faint click of the USB in the port echoed, a heartbeat of inevitability. The package had been a summons, a warning, a gift, and I would answer it on my terms. I knew exactly what to do next. He taught me manipulation, I just mastered it better. I remember the first time Dad smiled at me with that calculated charm, the kind that made you doubt your own instincts. Now, years later, I was wielding the same tool he'd honed over decades, but I had no desire to charm anyone. I had only one aim: truth, exposure, and finality. The USB sat quietly on my desk, the glow of my laptop screen reflecting in its polished surface. I plugged it in again, double-checking the recordings. Every word, every pause, every subtle tremor in his voice was evidence of his duplicity. My fingers hovered over the send button on the encrypted email I'd crafted for the investigators. My pulse raced not from fear, but from anticipation. This is it. The culmination. The strike they never saw coming. I typed the message carefully, choosing words that were neutral yet compelling. Attached is evidence pertinent to ongoing investigations. Please verify and act accordingly. No signature, no hint. Just facts, cold and undeniable. The investigators would connect the dots. I imagined Dad at that very moment, likely pacing in his marble-floored office, phone pressed to his ear, a forced smile hiding the growing panic in his eyes. I could almost hear him muttering under his breath, "Ellis, how?" The email sent with a soft click that echoed in my silent apartment. My heartbeat slowed as I leaned back, exhaling a slow, steady breath. Outside, rain drummed against the window, each drop sharp, precise like a metronome marking the start of a reckoning. Within days, everything began to unravel. The news alerts arrived like a barrage. Billionaire CEO accused of fraud after whistleblower evidence surfaces. Tess Ebbett deletes social media amid scandal fallout. Luna Sterling withdraws from public life following family controversy. I sat in my chair, eyes scanning each headline, trying to process the magnitude of it all. A part of me expected jubilation, relief, maybe even a sense of triumph, but instead, I felt calm, almost numb. The storm had passed, yet I was not celebrating. This wasn't victory. This was closure. I replayed Dad's voice in my mind mocking me publicly, confessing privately, and realized something I hadn't allowed myself to acknowledge until now. I no longer needed his validation. The empire, the headlines, the social scrutiny, they were just remnants of the cage he'd built around me. And now, I had walked free. Tess's absence on social media became a haunting echo. I remembered her voice, pleading once, calculating the next move, hiding behind polite smiles while trying to control every narrative. Ellis, you don't understand, she had said once, a tremor betraying her veneer. I smiled faintly. Now she understood. All too well. And Luna. The photos of her crying outside the courthouse flashed in my mind. I had feared for her, hated the idea of using anyone as a pawn, but she had survived, even if from the shadows. I imagined her retreating to a quiet corner of the world, reclaiming her life away from public scrutiny, away from the chaos we had endured. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and metal, the lingering aroma of the USB drive and the storm outside. Shadows stretched across the walls, flickering as the streetlight swayed with the wind. My fingers absent-mindedly traced the edge of the USB, the object now inert, but forever powerful in memory. I thought about my own reflection in the darkened window. The face staring back was different, not hardened, not triumphant, but measured, steady, equal. Equal, not because I had destroyed them, but because I had stopped needing their approval, their recognition, their control over me. I was no longer a participant in their manipulations. I was the observer, the silent force behind the curtain. Then, the unexpected happened. My email pinged a new message in my inbox. The sender's address made my stomach seize. It wasn't one I recognized, not one I had ever seen. Its name was a ghost, a creation that should not exist. I froze, heart thudding, fingers trembling. The calm that had settled over me evaporated instantly. Something in me screamed that this wasn't an accident, and this wasn't over. My mind raced, tracing possibilities, weighing dangers, imagining traps. Who could it be? Luna? Tess? Or him? The cursor blinked, impatient, taunting me. My breath fogged against the glass as I leaned closer, every nerve taut with anticipation and dread. Outside, the wind rattled the blinds, and the soft hum of the laptop seemed deafening. I knew, deep down, that opening this email would change everything. Until I got one final email from an address that shouldn't exist. The last words I expected from him were the ones that broke me again. I stared at the screen, frozen, my fingers hovering above the keyboard. The email subject alone made my stomach twist. No subject. My heart thumped not with fear, but with a strange, hollow recognition. The message read, "I'm proud of you, Ellis. You finally became like me. Signed, Asher." I blinked. Ray Reid. Shook my head. My throat tightened, a knot forming that made swallowing impossible. That old business address flashed in my memory, the one he had abandoned months ago after the scandal, supposedly deleted, erased from all records. And yet, here it was, alive, taunting me. Was this scheduled? Sent automatically before his arrest? Or, God help me, was he manipulating me one final time? I felt the burn of irony. Every lesson he'd ever taught me about control, persuasion, and fear, I had turned back on him. Every deceit he'd honed over decades, I had mirrored, but my methods had served justice, not cruelty. And now, in reading these words, I realized the unbearable truth. I had become everything I had despised about him. My apartment felt suddenly smaller, colder. The blinds rattled with a gust of wind, shadows dancing across the floor like restless spirits. I pressed my palms to my eyes, trying to stop the tears, but they came anyway, slow and unrelenting. I thought back to all the moments I'd spent planning, waiting, the subtle manipulations I had orchestrated. Each pause in dialogue, every carefully placed recording, every whispered rumor, I had crafted it like him, but with precision and patience. And yet, this email, these words, carried the weight of a moral mirror I wasn't ready to face. I whispered aloud, barely audible over the hum of the laptop, "Is this me?" The sound of my own voice startled me. It was raw, unfiltered, and yet trembling with disbelief. I wanted to scream, to hurl the laptop across the room, but I couldn't move. My mind raced through memories of Asher's smirk, the glint of malice in his eyes, the sound of his pacing when he thought no one was watching. Those same instincts now lived in me. I opened a blank email, fingers hovering again. I could write back defiant, angry, mocking, but the words died on my tongue. Instead, I stared at the signature. Asher.it felt like a presence in the room, a cold, invisible hand pressing against my chest. I imagined him sitting behind that old desk, smiling at some plan that had already played out perfectly. And I hated that I imagined it at all, hated that even in his absence, he could still unearth this deep, uncomfortable truth inside me. The USB, once a symbol of justice, lay on the desk beside my laptop. I traced it with a fingertip, thinking how ironic it was. The same object that brought closure also reflected the shadow I now carried within myself. I had finally leveled the playing field, finally ended the empire he built, but at a personal cost I wasn't ready to name. A chill ran through me. I leaned back in the chair, the leather creaking beneath me. Outside, rain pattered softly against the window pane, a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. Each drop seemed like a question. Who am I now? What have I become? I closed my eyes, trying to dislodge the words from my head. But I'm proud of you. You finally became like me, echoed relentlessly. The laughter he used to mock me with, the sharp sarcasm, the cold calculation, all of it was stitched into this sentence, threading through my mind like a needle through fragile skin. And then the realization hit me in full. I had done what I needed to survive. I had done what I needed to be free. But I had also become a reflection of him, a shadow I couldn't deny. That thought scared me more than any threat, more than any danger he could have inflicted. And that realization scared me more than anything. Sometimes, revenge doesn't end, it reflects. I stared at myself in the mirror, tracing the lines around my eyes I hadn't noticed before. The reflection was calm to calm, like the surface of water after a storm, but I knew what churned beneath it. My chest rose and fell steadily. My hands rested lightly on the edge of the sink, but my mind replayed every sharp word, every small betrayal I had endured, every move I had orchestrated in silence. The scent of coffee lingered in the apartment, warm and bitter, clinging to the corners like a ghost. The faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft clatter of dishes in the sink. I had worked so hard for this mundane peace. Freedom tasted like ceramic mugs and the cool morning light hitting the hardwood floor. And yet, I couldn't shake the unease that clung to my skin. Was this real? Or had I simply built a new stage for the same drama? Luna's tear-streaked face flashed in my mind. Tessa's silence, their expressions etched with shock, betrayal, and disbelief, had haunted me more than any threat Asher had ever posed. I had thought I was delivering justice, exposing the truth, cutting away the rot. But sometimes I wondered, had I destroyed them? Or had I just peeled back their masks and revealed the monsters underneath? I spoke aloud, though no one was there to answer. Did I go too far? My voice was low, rough with exhaustion, tinged with fear. Or did I finally see them as they were? I remembered the subtle tells, the tremor in Luna's hands as she clutched that bracelet I had left on her desk, the way Tess avoided my gaze, twisting her lips as though words failed her. The quiet tension I had woven around them, so delicate and precise, now felt like a weight pressing on my own chest. Revenge had a funny way of reflecting the seeker, and suddenly, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. The mirror caught the morning light, shadows cutting across my face like sharp lines. I noticed the small twitch at the corner of my jaw, the slight frown etched into my brow that I didn't remember practicing. Even the way I breathed, calm on the surface, but rapid under the skin, spoke volumes about the chaos I carried inside. A knock at the door made me jump, my reflection wincing in tandem. It's probably just delivery, I muttered, though my stomach tightened. I hadn't expected any visits. No one knew where I had moved, no one except those I had carefully monitored. The phone buzzed suddenly on the counter. I froze, my hand hovering above it. The screen lit up, a message from Luna. My chest squeezed. My fingers itched to throw the phone, to hurl it away and silence her forever. But curiosity won, and I swiped open the message. Her words were simple, almost chilling in their calm. Ellis, we need to talk. I think you don't even realize what you've done. I read it twice, slowly, tasting each syllable like it was poison. Did she mean harm? Or had she finally seen the reflection? I'd always feared that my calm exterior concealed the same darkness I had spent years hating in others. The apartment felt smaller suddenly. The hum of the refrigerator seemed louder, the smell of coffee sharper, almost acrid. I paced, barefoot on the cool wood, trying to breathe past the creeping panic. My reflection followed me in the mirror on the wall, eyes cold and calculating, mirroring my every movement. I pressed my palm against the glass, tracing the face I had become, and I realized it with a shiver. Revenge had changed me. It had polished me, sharpened me, made me ruthless, but it had also reflected back everything I once feared in Asher, Luna, and Tess. The calm was only skin deep. Underneath, I was both hunter and haunted. I sat on the edge of the couch, phone trembling in my hands. Her message glowed in the dim light, a reminder that the story wasn't over. That reflection in the mirror, it wasn't just mine. Then, a message pinged on my phone from Luna. Not all apologies heal some reopen the wound. I didn't expect to see Luna again, not like this, after everything that had happened. Yet here she was, framed by the calf window, sunlight glinting off the damp strands of her hair, a hesitant smile tugging at her lips. My chest tightened immediately. I wanted to run, to slam the door on all this lingering history, but my feet rooted themselves in place. She walked in slowly, eyes scanning the room, and then finally met mine. There was a tension in her gaze that hadn't been there before, a flicker of fear or maybe guilt, it was impossible to tell. I motioned to the table near the back. "Sit," I said, my voice calm, but my mind raced. Every scenario, every lie, every betrayal between us replayed like a looping nightmare. We sat, the silence stretching long enough for the coffee to cool between us. I could smell the faint hint of cinnamon from her latte, the bitter roast mixing with her familiar perfume. It was comforting and infuriating all at once. "Luna," I started, struggling for neutrality. "Why now?" She looked down at her hands, twisting the bracelet I had given her years ago, the same one I had once used as a test, a silent measure of trust. Her fingers trembled slightly. She hesitated. "I needed you to know why I did it. Why I leaked your father's confession." I blinked, coffee forgotten, heart lurching. "You did it, for me?" My voice was both disbelief and suspicion. "Do you know what that could have done? What he could have done if he found out?" She swallowed hard, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I knew. That's why I told someone I trusted. I knew he might come after you. I didn't want you caught in his trap." I was terrified, but I didn't know if you'd ever forgive me. Her admission hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to lean forward, to tear her apart with questions, accusations, demands, but I didn't. Instead, I observed the subtle micro-expressions, the twitch of her jaw, the way she avoided my gaze when she spoke of my father. These small details betrayed more than her words. She was sincere and terrified. I stayed quiet, letting the weight of her confession sink in. Memories of her tears, the night she disappeared from my life, flashed unbidden. Tessa's silence, my father's lies, every betrayal, every escape, every careful maneuver I had plotted to survive, it all pressed against me like the walls of a shrinking room. "Luna," I finally said, voice low, measured, "we're not the same people we were." She nodded slowly, biting her lip. "No, and I'm leaving the city soon. I want to start over. I want to be someone who doesn't drag chaos wherever I go." Her hands rested on the table, fingers intertwined like she was holding herself together. Maybe walking away alive is our redemption." I exhaled, the tension in my shoulders easing fractionally. "Then walk," I said. My words were gentle but firm, and I sensed the truth in her eyes. Both of us had changed. Both of us had scars that wouldn't heal completely. Silence filled the space between sips of lukewarm coffee, punctuated by the low hum of the calf and the soft clatter of plates. We stayed like that for a long time, just watching each other, two people bound by past pain, yet navigating the fragile truce we had found. The sunlight shifted, casting a shadow across her face, highlighting the lines of worry and sorrow I remembered and the hope I hadn't expected to see. When she finally stood, she slid the chair back slowly, almost reverently. "Thank you," she said softly, "for understanding, for surviving." I nodded, my eyes fixed on her retreating figure, my fingers brushing the edge of the bracelet she had played with all this time. She paused at the door, turning slightly. "Ellis," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the cafe's background chatter. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. What? I asked, my pulse quickening. Her lips curved into a faint, secretive smile. You might want to check Mom's new account, and with that, she left. The calf felt suddenly emptier, colder, the sunlight harsh against my skin. Her words echoed in my mind, vibrating with threat and intrigue. That simple phrase, Mom's new account, was loaded with danger. A chill ran down my neck as the hum of the refrigerator in my apartment replayed in my memory, reminding me how fragile this calm really was. I stared at the door long after she disappeared, my fingers brushing the bracelet on my wrist. The symbolic weight of it pressed against me. Trust, betrayal, secrets, warnings, all interwoven into a single, fragile thread. I had survived the past, yes, but Luna's whisper suggested the next storm was already gathering. But as she leaves, she whispers, you might want to check Mom's new account. Evil doesn't die, it reinvents itself. I opened Tessa's social media with the same casual curiosity I might have once had for a morning newspaper, but the moment her feed loaded, my chest seized. Photos, interviews, and glossy videos sprawled across the screen like a carefully choreographed exhibition. Her face, flawless under professional lighting, held the same manipulative charm I remembered, but the story she told this time was twisted. She called herself a victim of my father's crimes, claiming I had been the envious, jealous daughter undermining her. My fingers hovered over the mouse, tension coiling through me like a spring. The calf was quiet around me, the faint hiss of the espresso machine punctuating the silence. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, a slow, steady drum. I remembered the countless nights I had fought against her manipulations, the sleepless hours planning revenge, clawing my way back from lies, betrayals, and danger. And yet, this her newest reinvention felt almost trivial. A small smirk tugged at my lips. I could expose her again, tear down this false narrative with the evidence I had painstakingly collected over the months. I could post screenshots, leaked recordings, even that bracelet she once tossed aside, proof she had lied, deceived, and twisted reality to her advantage. But I didn't. I sipped my coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me. Why ruin perfection with truth? I muttered to myself, my voice soft, almost teasing. I leaned back, letting the chair creak under my weight. For the first time in years, I wasn't consumed by anger or fear. Her power over me, the same power she had exercised so ruthlessly, was gone. I had survived. I had controlled the narrative by refusing to engage. My silence was the punishment she didn't anticipate. Her captions dripped with theatrics, the choice words carefully curated to evoke sympathy, to manipulate public perception. I scrolled past the smiling photos, noting how every piece of jewelry, every designer dress, every luxurious backdrop screamed the persona she wanted the world to believe in. I remembered the smell of her perfume, the cloying sweetness that had once made me nauseous during our encounters, and now it lingered in my mind like a reminder. Manipulation could be elegant, even seductive, but it was still poison. A notification pinged, someone tagged me in a comment. I clicked it, expecting confrontation, attacks, perhaps even a public scandal. But it was just a congratulatory remark, praising my calm demeanor in the past drama. I felt a flicker of satisfaction, the kind that wasn't loud or triumphant. It was quiet, deliberate, unshakable. I could destroy her facade in an instant, yes, but my restraint spoke louder than any public vindication ever could. I closed the browser, leaning back in my chair, letting the late afternoon sunlight wash over my face. Shadows stretched across the room, stretching longer as the day waned. The sound of distant traffic droned, blending with the low hum of conversations around me. I felt free, not triumphant, not gloating, but untethered. The past had shaped me, but it no longer owned me. Still, the occasional pang of reflection surfaced. Every time I passed a boutique, glanced at a designer dress, or saw the gleam of luxury in a public post, I couldn't shake a lingering thought. Did I really escape them, or just become another version they created? Tessa's reinvention, my survival, the careful persona I had constructed to protect myself, they were all mirrors reflecting facets of the same toxic history. I thought back to Luna's warning, her whispered hint about Mom's account, subtle threats, symbolic objects, past betrayals. They had shaped a complex web I had navigated successfully. And yet, even victory wasn't simple. Freedom came with shadows, with questions about whether I had truly claimed agency, or if the patterns I fought so hard to escape were still influencing the edges of my life. The bracelet on my wrist caught the sunlight, worn, familiar, symbolic of trust once given, trust lost, and trust regained in a form of personal power. Its presence reminded me that survival wasn't just about confrontation or exposure. It was about restraint, about choosing which battles defined me and which ones I let pass. I had learned the art of quiet dominance, the silent way to win, without spectacle or vindictive display. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension in my shoulders dissolve. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel the weight of peace. Tess would continue her performances, her narratives, her reinventions, but I was no longer part of her stage. The air smelled faintly of coffee and old paper from the journal I kept tucked beside me, a reminder of past plots, secrets, and memories. Each page a record of strategies, failures, and the subtle triumphs that defined my survival. I leaned over the journal, tracing the edge of a page with a fingertip, feeling the slight ridges of ink. My mind wandered briefly how fragile the line was between survival and manipulation, revenge and redemption. Yet, I smiled to myself, the sound muffled by the calf walls, because I knew this. I had the last word, even in silence. Still, every time I see a designer dress, I wonder, did I really escape them, or just become another version they created?